We've owned this vessel for about 2 years and 4 months. We didn't just take ownership of a new vessel. We didn't just put 3 dogs on it, but we were also brand new sailors to having a large boat like this and knowing how to operate it. I think what we did is to look at a big picture. We went from buying and having the handover of the boat from Leopard to going to commissioning, which everybody does that. It's a dream phase. You're really excited about your new smelling, brand new boat. You see all these new options you can put on it. And at that point, you need to really slow down and think about the next few iterations. For us, after taking ownership and doing the commissions, it was basically learning to sail and learning what our lifestyle was going to be like. And so that's the first iteration, and that would take anywhere from 6 months to a year. The second iteration is then kind of moving up and going outside of just sailing in small areas that are much more protected and basically do what's called coastal sailing and being prepared for coastal sailing. And then finally there's blue water sailing, which if you even go over to the Bahamas is a combination of coastal and blue water sailing there. And that adds another layer of complications. One thing has surfaced in how we live on the vessel, and that is using the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. There's a lot of things that go on a boat, and the more you add to it, the increase in complexities just kind of mount up. We know some people that are going to go straight to blue water. They're brand new, they've got it all together, and they're just adding everything all at once. But I know for myself that what I had a vision of and what reality is has really taught me a lot about how to approach owning a new boat and learning on it.
Meet Lab Mariner, our home on the water, and her crew. Anubis, the huntress. Jim, the captain. Mocha, the camera dog. Nuala, the greeter. And Stephanie, the cruise director.
Anybody who's lucky enough to own a new boat has to start off with working with the manufacturer options. And you do that through a detailed contract. It is a lot of words that for us, we didn't quite understand how they all fit together. Because frankly, when you're lucky enough to see one of these boats, you can only see it 3 or 4 times at most. For many of us, we were picking the base options at a boat show as people are going all around, and we're looking at the boat trying to complete a contract with what our initial thoughts of our options were going to be. I think there's a few different ways of approaching it, and they're all good, but it's basically the concept of marrying what you think you're going to be doing with it and trying to understand what these options are going to really be with only a skeletal understanding of what the options are going to be once they're delivered and being used. And then immediately after delivery of that contract with those options, almost everybody goes to an aftermarket commissioning process, which starts filling up your vessel with a whole lot of additional items that aren't on the options list that many people like to put on their vessel. Then the options explode, and you really have to truly think about what those options are based on how you would use the vessel. And we chose all of our original commissioning items, almost all of them, to fit our Chesapeake era of sailing. We'll go over our aftermarket choices. You just don't do aftermarket options right after you purchase your boat and you're done. You need to think about how you progress. And we came up with a long list of options, and then only a few of them were done at the aftermarket commission. And then we had another segment of options that would help us for our future sailing that we would add later. But we're going to talk about just the options that we added at handover.
I'm going to very briefly list the factory and aftermarket options that we chose at delivery, so you'll know what we had before these recent additions. Starting with our factory options: anchor bridle, air conditioning, blinds and salon, boom cover, bowsprit and code 0, deck wash fitting, 12-inch display at helm, electric flush toilets, electric winches, fans, fenders and mooring lines, fusion stereo, gas outlet for grill, generator, inverter battery charger, outlets and heads, Ray Marine base pack, shore power pack, stainless steel dinghy davit system, stern shower, television mount and extra outlet, and windlass up foot switch. The aftermarket options that we chose: Rocknet anchor, anchor chain, AIS 700, bowsprit alterations, cockpit shades, cockpit and bow cushions, AB dinghy, extra drawers and master suite, freshwater flush, helm enclosure and sunshades, life raft relocation, lithium batteries, electronics for lithium batteries, motor for dinghy, radar, rub rail, shelves and salon area, solar array, the electronics for the solar panel array, and a water maker. What we added to prepare our boat for sailing in the Bahamas.
Up in the Chesapeake, first year and a half, we were weekend sailors. We would sail around, we would go to the marina, we would putt around our boat, and then 10 months ago, we got serious. We moved onto the boat, and we started sailing the Chesapeake nonstop. We're going to talk about what we did just before we left the Chesapeake in order to be prepared for the second iteration. Coastal sailing, coming down the East Coast, coming all the way to Fort Lauderdale, going over to the Bahamas for about 4 months and living in the Bahamas nonstop.
Our first edition, a freezer unit, was added while we were in the Solomons Island in Maryland. So for our first edition, I'm going to head down to the master suite hull and show you our new freezer unit under this floorboard. There we go, our new freezer unit. So when we bought our boat, we knew that the plan for the first 2 years was to sail in the Chesapeake. And in the Chesapeake, as is any place in the US, it's super easy to find groceries, even if you were living full-time on the boat. However, once we planned to go to the Bahamas, we knew that it would not be easy to find grocery stores, let alone food we liked. And if we did find it, it was going to be expensive. So we knew that we had to install a new freezer unit. So in choosing a freezer unit, one of our considerations was that we wanted it out of the way. Our plan was not to use it all the time, but rather to come down here every 3 or 4 weeks, pull some stuff out of the freezer and move it up to the freezer unit in the salon area. So it did not need to be easy to access. We also knew that we didn't want to use up other storage space to put in a freezer unit in its place. Additionally, we knew that we wanted it to work off DC power. We have plenty of solar banks, so we knew we could run it off of DC power and it would be easier than inverting it to AC power. So we knew it had to be DC power based. And lastly, we needed to find a way to stabilize it. It needed to be stable while we were underway and not move around very much. So we had seen that another couple had actually put a freezer unit down into the hull area in their master suite, and we wanted to take advantage of this space as well. So the issue was finding a freezer that fit perfectly into the space. We not only had to put it into this space, but we also have to be able to remove the top in order to access the food in it. So there were 2 considerations for the unit that we chose. So after a lot of searching, Jim was finally able to find what he thought was the perfect unit for our freezer. It is a Costway 70-quart freezer. It is a portable car unit. It runs off of 12 volts. So it fits all of our needs perfectly. And the best thing is that all you do is you take off the lid, set it aside, you can get what you want, and move it up to the salon area. Super easy. So once we got the freezer unit, we've had to find a way to stabilize that freezer unit down in the halls. And what Jim found online were these cargo bars. They've got a nice surface here as well as here, and they extend really super easily. They easily worked in our halls. And Jim has found numerous places to use these cargo bars. So if you don't already have some of these, I'm putting a link below, so make sure you get some. So as you can see, we've used one of these cargo units on the starboard side to hold the freezer unit in place, and we have used 2 on the port side to hold this freezer unit in place. And you'll also see that these are stabilizing not only the freezer unit, but we also were able to add 2 additional storage containers in this area. This freezer unit has a female cigarette plug outlet, and Jim was able to wire directly that outlet into our DC power banks. So in order to determine the temperature that this new freezer unit was running at, Jim put in a sensor that's a wireless sensor with 2 units, one to the freezer unit downstairs and one that we keep in the refrigerator unit upstairs, and it tells us what the temperatures are. I'll show you the unit here. So I'm putting some links below to not only the freezer unit that we used, but also the cargo bars and also this temperature sensor that we are also using. So how much can we fit in that new freezer? And that is 3 2-pound bags of shrimp. So this is what it looks like when it's fully packed. Our second edition, trunks in the aftermost section of the engine compartment. So here is the finished product. As you can see, it looks very nice. And it's in there very solidly. And this is all of our extra space that we're gonna have.
The trunks function for 2 key reasons. One is we get a lot of very heavy stuff in the vessel in the aft and down low, keeping the center of gravity of the boat lower. And what that does is it helps the boat ride through the water a lot more efficiently. Second of all, it takes a lot of things that we just don't use very often. We may go 6 months before there needs to be an oil change. We may go 3 months before we need to refill our detergent bottles. And we may go 6 months and not need our second anchor. So all of those things are put down in the trunks. They're easy to get to when you need them, but they're heavy and they're out of the way. When you look in the trunk, we lined it with a interlocking mat that raises everything off of the actual gel coat and helps protect it in case there's some movement. Every once in a while where there's a screw piercing the hull, if it's not bedded right, you'll get some weeping, and that'll allow the weeping to go underneath all of this. Overall, weight, getting rid of things that we don't need very often, and then balancing the boat all works very well together. These totes we use everywhere in the boat. They come in many different sizes. These are called Iris totes. We got these from Container Store. We can only use these because there's only so much space in these trunks, and so luckily we're able to fit 2 on top of one another, still have room to move things around, but get a lot of the use of the space of the trunks. They interlock, so once you put them on top of one another, there is less movement in the trunks. We've been through a number of heavy sea events now with these in the back, and we keep going down there and they don't seem to move at all. So probably 90 to 98% of everyone who has these trunks put in aftermarket has a professional do it. I actually wanted to try to do it. This project allowed me to put something in I really liked. It allowed me to get it done at a time where we weren't near an organization that could put these in. And it also allowed me to scratch an itch. I've always wanted to understand how to manage epoxy and lay fiberglass down. And it also gave me my first experience with G4 F10 board, which is an epoxy board itself. Not an easy product to work with, very hard to cut.
What do we have there?
Well, at the beginning of my trunk project, I had to create templates that match the hull. What was nice is that both hulls are the mirror image of one another. Those are the 2 sides, and then traced them on and cut them. Since they're the mirror image, the starboard aft, and there is port aft. So just cut those in somewhere along here. There it is. Just to cut these 4 pieces off took like 12 jigsaw blades. You can see where they would burn out and I'd have to start a new one.
Explain what this material is again.
This is industrial made fiberglass epoxy board. It is the equivalent of a piece of plywood in epoxy fiberglass terms. It comes in big sheets, very expensive because it's very, very strong. It's called G10 FR4. I bought 60-inch by 12-inch. When I install this, the area from here to here is actually going to be a gap between the floor, so if there's any leak, it's just going to roll through and be able to get to the bilge here in the engine room. The epoxying is done right here where I've ground it down. Going to slide this in, dry fit this back into the engine room bay. First off, use my cargo bars, pin it in so it doesn't move at all. Use a wax pencil to make sure I get the leading edges and also show where I need to sand. We'll get the sanding done, put it back in its dry fit place, and then get epoxying, and then I'm done. This side is 3, maybe 4 times faster now that I know what I'm doing.
Now that you're an expert.
And frankly, also, since that was my first time ever using epoxy and fiberglass cloth, it was actually far easier than I thought. Epoxy board that I bought is notoriously difficult to bond to, so I sanded it, and now I need to wipe it off to make sure that the rough grit that I've left on it will adhere with the epoxy. Well, after I wipe it, then I dry fit it back again, and once I know it's exactly where it is, I mix up the epoxy and start going against time. Within an hour, I can lay 16 yards worth of 2-inch fiberglass on either side of the seams. Put your alarm on for 25 minutes.
All right, now the big question after we have the trunks made is how much can we store in it? So can we store all of this? So if you had any doubts, yes, everything does fit. So 2 of the reasons that Jim had mentioned why we put those trunks in is because we not only wanted to move weight to the back of the boat, but we also wanted to free up some space. And one of the areas that we now have free, which also contains a lot of weight, is under the forward berth. And I'll show you what we put there now. So if you've ever wanted to know what 500 pounds of dog food looks like, I've just shown you. Addition 3, additional hardware and software for navigation.
When we ordered our vessel, there were a number of upgrade options for our navigation and electronic. I think we pretty much, when it came to sailing electronics, we bought everything that Raymarine and Leopard was offering, the latest and greatest electronics, because the technology is changing pretty considerably over the last few years. So what that entailed for us was upgrading the 9-inch screen for Raymarine up to the 12-inch screen. There's a lot of data, and you need as big a screen as you can to be able to see all the different data feeds all at once, because they all are integrated. Externally to this main screen is also our autopilot screen and also our AIS. So this package works great in the Chesapeake. It also works great if you are comfortable and really knowledgeable about where you're going on a long passage. But it's really not the thing that you would want when you're doing coastal sailing or if you're going to the Caribbean. And even in the Chesapeake, we wanted to have additional data once I got more and more familiar, and all the existing electronics we got tuned to our ways of operating. We found out there was even additional information that was core to our sailing, and as a result we actually have even integrated a tablet holder here at the helm. We have a 10-inch tablet that's integrated into a cellular service, so it's live data. So we're able to get live data of tides, of currents, unique shoaling situations when you're going through narrow channels. There is a integrated service where anybody who finds a shoal can basically report it on their own tablet, and it uploads, and if you get enough people that are reporting the same issue, it ends up being a data point on the app itself. What I'm going to do is take you down to our salon and show you the other technology. The reason why I'm taking you down to the salon is all the rest of the technology we have can actually be run on tablets. Because of that, you're able to not just stay at the helm and navigate your vessel, but you can literally be downstairs and put these tablets on the table in the middle of the night when the waves are moving, you're getting a lot of boat action, it's dark, could be cold, and you just don't want to be up here. So let's go downstairs and I'll show you what software we've loaded on those new tablets to help us do our coastal and blue water sailing. When times are great, it's really nice to just be at the helm and sail the boat at the helm. And here we are. We are in the salon, sitting at the settee. We're facing forward. and we have all this window space to look out for any obstacles or ships or any other concerns we may have. And here on the table, we have the tablet that also goes up at the helm, and we have a map here that we use and is GPS guided. And we also have the ability of getting weather updates on this tablet. This is basically a slave screen to our Raymarine. And what we mean by a slave screen is everything that the 12-inch Raymarine monitor has up at the helm is shown exactly here. But I can have the feedback and make the changes here on this tablet, and simultaneously it also changes the screen up above. So if I'm sitting here looking at this and Stephanie's up at the helm and she's making changes to her shift at the helm, I can actually see all the changes that she is doing at the helm, and vice versa. She can see what I'm doing. You can get multiples of these feeds, so I can actually take another tablet or a small handheld and have just a feed of this without being able to make any changes, just be able to see this. And when I wake up, I can look at it and see where we are on the map. I can see the wind conditions. I can see what waypoint we're at. I can see everything that Stephanie has been working on at that time. But we're talking about the helm station that we created here in the salon. And we talked about the view, and we talked about the feedback from the tablet and seeing an additional map to help us navigate. And what's really, really nice is you're able to do this, and the bouncing around from the wave action is the most minimum spot on the entire vessel is right here. And Leopard doesn't even talk about this as a unique feature for their vessel. Our SETI is set up so it's facing forward. There are a huge number of models even being built today where the SETIs are up front where our kitchen is, and literally majority of the seating is facing aft or facing backwards. So you couldn't even set this up and have this type of internal salon helm station even if you wanted to.
Addition number 4, folding propellers. Our next addition required a haul out of the boat, so we timed it to coordinate with when we were going to clean and paint the bottom of our boat. When we bought the boat, we knew we were going to be sailing in the Chesapeake for about 2 years, so we didn't really have a need to buy new propellers at this time. In the Chesapeake, we were doing day sails, so if our boat went a little slower than it could have, that was okay. However, once we decided to do coastal sailing, we knew that we needed to increase our boat speed. Since low drag propellers claim an average gain of 0.5 to 1.5 knots of boat speed, we knew we wanted to switch our propellers. Low drag propellers claim several additional advantages when used under sail. Firstly, they claim good, if not better, forward thrust compared to fixed propellers. Secondly, they claim to be able to aim higher into the wind due to water flow to the rudder. Thirdly, they claim that due to the increased sailing speed under low wind conditions, this makes it easier to tack under low to medium winds. Fourthly, they claim that they reduce propeller resistance under sail by up to 90% compared to fixed propellers. Fifthly, they claim that there is reduced propeller noise under sail. And lastly, they claim reduced wear on bearings. With low drag props, you have 2 options, folding props or feathering props. So what's the difference between these 2 types of props? The blades of folding props are hinged so that the force of the water folds them shut while you're sailing. Then, when you put your engine in gear, centrifugal force and the hydrodynamic shape of the blades forces them to flare out. With feathering props, the blades are always extended. When sailing, the blades are kept on centerline, where their flat shape creates minimal resistance. When you put your engine in gear, another set of gears inside the hub rotates the blades to a predetermined pitch, allowing them to provide thrust. After reading the reviews for both systems that we were considering, we came to the conclusion that either one would work just fine for us. So we went with the folding prop. The folding props have fewer working parts, so they're less likely to require maintenance, and they're significantly cheaper. Also, folding props are less likely to catch on ropes, seaweed, and debris than feathering props are. We decided to go with Flexifold folding props. We were aware that Flexifold folding props tended to show a slight hesitation and thrust at low RPMs. So after our boat went back into the water, we decided to test this out. I was just turning it like just a little bit, and it's like, it's not moving. Why is it not moving? It's definitely a lot more than the other one.
And you cannot let go or it'll slam out of your hands.
Okay. I don't feel a lot of pressure though.
You will if you let go of it. So if you're going to loosen your hands, keep it on there if you're going to try that out.
Oh yeah, now I feel it pulling. Am I turning it the right direction? I'm just like turning it.
You have to turn it all the way to almost to the end.
gosh.
That's what I was trying to explain to you over. That's why I wanted you to try.
It is not responsive at all. You really have to.
Yes. You have to literally get it to the far end of its spectrum. And now you're coming back around.
Yeah, it's slow too.
Yeah. But
Slow
that also means that once you start responding, you need to start trying to manage it.
Yeah, I'm trying to center it again. Although the slight hesitation was a little difficult at first, we found that accommodating for this became second nature. So, what do we think of our folding props after 3 months of use?
Between full water, full diesel, full gas, full pantry, and full scuba, we have never ever been this heavy. And to go 8 knots with us being this heavy probably says that our Flexifold props have really, really slicked us out. One of the people that talked to me about getting some folding props, he's like, so take a big bucket, tie a line on it, and throw it off the back of your boat. And that's how much drag is dragging your boat, because the props that we had were fixed, and they don't, when you're sailing, they just sit there. And so the water is trying to pass by it. It's like a big parachute that's about 15 inches wide, because the diameter of the props are about 15 inches wide. But now we have these Flexifold, which basically fold down so that they're like a torpedo when we're not using them. So all that drag is gone, and believe it or not, it actually adds anywhere from a half to a full knot of speed to your vessel. And that's quite a lot when your average boat speed is 5 to 8 knots usually.
Our last addition, scuba tank racks. Happy Halloween, sweetie.
Mwah. Thanks for all your extra hard work in putting this together. If I don't feel like Fred now, I'm not sure I ever will.
What's our mystery?
All I know is that Fred just wants to hang out with Daphne.
Hi, Nuala do. Hi, Mocha do. Hi, Nubis do.
We got lots of work done to the Scooby van.
So of all the things that we got done, what are you most excited about?
The haul out, because you can't always haul out a 24-foot beam boat anywhere you want. And anybody who's watching, Safe Harbors Anheuser
In Solomon's Island.
They are very good, and I think reasonably priced, and they were wonderful to work with. And I can't say that about it everywhere we've been. While we're in Fort Lauderdale spending time with our son and enjoying the holidays, we elected to purchase brand new scuba equipment. And most of that equipment's easy to deal with, except for the tanks. Scuba tanks are pretty heavy. They're probably about 40 to 50 pounds a piece, depending on the one that you get. They are dangerous when they roll around. They take up a lot of space. And so how you handle them always seems to be a thing that people have to think about. We found that most people that have the same vessel that have scuba equipment, they've elected to go with a outside stainless steel rack. Stainless steel fabricators out of Fort Lauderdale did this rack for us very quickly while we were there. They've also years ago put in this stainless steel rack for our solar array that we put in aftermarket. We fit our 4 steel tanks back here. It pushes the weight back into the back of the vessel. Again, we always talk about pushing the heavier stuff further back if you can to help balance out the boat. The dinghy rests up against 5 separate stainless steel pieces right here, which helps push our dinghy out a little bit. And for me, I've actually liked it. It works out very well. So the overall system works nicely, and we'll probably put even an additional upgrade now that this is in. A lot of people that elect to get this rack aftermarket, this space right here is perfect for storage or coolers, and it'll fit further back away from the edge of the walkway and allow us to have additional storage space. And when you're doing a lot of things around the dinghy and scuba, all the things that happen on the aft side of the cockpit, you like to have that extra storage.
So pups, what'd you think of this episode? What's that? 3 paws up! So if you're enjoying this episode, please remember to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to our channel.